Hello, everybody, and welcome into another News and Rumors video here at the Hockey Bears YouTube channel. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and we're doing Maple Leafs again here. I got Peter Baracchini, who is always joining me for these videos. Peter, how's it going?
It's going great. Yeah. I mean, we're barely a week into the season and there's still lots to talk about regarding the Maple Leafs right now. So as always with this team, there's no shortage of talking points, whether it's a slow news day or it's a big news day, there's always something to talk about regardless. So happy to be back.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about, actually. Quickly. I mean, there's quite a bit of things that have happened in the last day or so, especially in the last game. So we'll start with Easton Cowan making his NHL debut finally after 3 games. He wasn't in the lineup, but fans were clamoring for him to get in, and he did make his debut and started on the top line, which was another big thing that everyone was kind of looking. What'd you think about his debut on that first line?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird because it looked like he was about to make the team based on what Berube said, but then they sent him down trying to figure some cap stuff, and then they called him back up, and he's officially on the roster, but hasn't gone into any game action. So a lot of fans are like, what's going on with him? Yeah. Well, Berube said that they had a plan for him, and I guess this was the plan all along. But I thought he was fantastic, and it is a lot of pressure, and it's a big hole to fill, a big Mitch Marner size gap to fill on that right hand side because you're expecting a lot of points. But coming into the season, you had to temper expectations. You didn't know how Cowan was going to produce, how well he would fare in a top 6 role because many thought he would be in the bottom 6, and I thought maybe fourth line. He had some good chemistry with, Steven Lorentz and Scott Laughton. However, both of them are out right now. So what's the next best option? What's his potential? Next bet is top 6. So let's see how well he would do alongside Austin Matthews and Matthew Knies. And 2 games, he hasn't looked out of place. He's delivered. And it's that puck hounding mentality that he's known for, where he's not afraid to go into the dirty areas. He's not afraid to battle. Yes, he's a playmaker by trade. Yes, he does have a good shot. And rightfully so. Like from the first 2 games, you saw some good playmaking decisions. He sprung Austin Matthews on a breakaway. Ultimately, Matthews didn't quite get one by Cam Talbot, but it was a great play nonetheless. And then you see him step up in the neutral zone to force a turnover, regain possession, pass the puck up quickly, and then it's a 2-on-1 with Matthews and Knies. And then lo and behold, Matthews scored the goal off the feed from Knies, but they also pointed to Cowan because that was his first point. It all started because of him. And I feel like he's getting his feet a little bit wet, a little bit like the comfort factor is there. If he's getting praises from his teammates, especially from the top line and the captain himself on the bench where he's like patting his head on the back, great job kind of thing. If you're Easton Cowan, you have to take that as, a great sign of things to come. And so far the line, I know it's a small sample, with like only 2 games and, barely 21 minutes play, but they have an expected goals for percentage of 68.4% per money puck. And that, you should, again, this early in the season, take those stats with a grain of salt because there's not a big, sample size. But the way that Cowan is acting as a playmaker and as that effective 2-way forward with a little bit of nastiness to his game, not so much in terms of physicality, but being relentless and battling for pucks hard. He's doing what fans kind of didn't quite see with Mitch Marner and going to the dirty areas and battling hard. Cowan maybe is still on the smaller side, but he's winning battles. And that's the main thing that I'm taking away from him in his first 2 games. Obviously, you need to see a little bit more. You want to see a little bit more consistency. Again, is the production going to be top line level this year? I doubt it. But given his work ethic and the mindset that the team wants to go in, I think Cowan's fitting great, especially in on that top line.
Yeah, I mean, he made his NHL debut against the Red Wings in the 3-2 loss, and then, of course, played against the Nashville Predators the next day. So, I mean, had a first assist, first point, +2. And it's funny that both the ice times are the exact same, 14:05. That's weird. I don't know how that happened.
He's earning it, though.
One, so even down to the second. But yeah, and it's not top line minutes, but I mean, it probably wasn't on the power play, right? So that was probably what.
If he was, I think he would be second unit. But I think also in terms of Cowan right now, you just want to see him play his game. You don't want him to do too much. You don't want to give into the fact that, yeah, you know what, this isn't quite handed to me. You can't lay back or whatever. You got to keep your foot going forward. So I think with him, knowing his work ethic and the mindset that he has, he is not taking this for granted. And he's still going to power through and play the way that Easton Cowan knows how to play a successful hockey game right now.
Yeah, I think, and the thing is about him, and I mean, the preseason, he showed that he can play a bottom six role. So that's not like he's one of those guys you're like, well, if he's not in the top six, he's not good.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's a very valuable thing to have because, I mean, there's a lot of players that if they're not playing in that top six, they're useless. And Cowan's not one of those guys. So it's good that he can fit. Seems like he can fit with those top line. And you'd think in his ceiling is a top six guy, but we'll see. Right now, he can be down to the third and fourth lines. It wouldn't be a big issue either. All right. Another thing that happened against the Predators was Cayden Primeau getting his first start with the Maple Leafs after being claimed off waivers. So, I mean, how do you think he looked? 4 goals on 30 shots. It's not really good numbers, but they did win 7-4. So, I mean, he outscored the amount of goals he let in. So, but how do you think he looked during that game?
Yeah, I thought Cayden Primeau did really well. Obviously, this is a player that has a long track record in the AHL where he has a decent record and decent numbers, 84, 44, and 18 with a .912 save percentage. But when you compare that to the NHL, 888, 14, 23, and 7 is his record. So little bit of a big discrepancy right there where he is so great in the AHL, but hasn't quite found his footing in the NHL. With Montreal and their goaltending situation where you have Montembeault, Dobes, Fowler coming up, Primeau was the odd man out. Obviously, the Maple Leafs took a flyer on him. Their goaltending situation is a little bit murky right now because you don't know how Joseph Woll is going to be out. I would have thought that maybe Dennis Hildeby would have been the backup, but I think they still see him a little bit more seasoning in the AHL as well. And then who's the next best option on the market? At least Primeau does have a little bit more NHL experience. I thought he did well. There were a lot of times where, the Maple Leafs kind of broke down defensively. He stood his ground, made some big stops. Again, probably would have liked to have 1 or 2 goals there. I think maybe that one that just squeaked by him, the first one, he would love to have back the second one where it was a, bad pass from behind the net and immediately goes in. It was a bang, bang kind of like goal. Tough for him to regroup and, get into position on that. Thought maybe he could have had the Roman Josi goal, but again, those are probably the only 2 I thought he could have had a real chance on. Obviously, you're not going to rely on him fully because obviously Anthony Stolarz is the go-to guy right now. But is he a capable option as a backup right now? That's still to be determined. Again, he had a good result on a back-to-back. If you want to see him in a couple of other different situations or in a couple different games where you want to give Anthony Stolarz a rest and you want to play him against a better opponent, not to say that Nashville wasn't a better opponent because they're also a hot start, but I think you want to see a little bit more from him. And then you have to decide, is he good enough to still keep up, or should we rather give the reins to Dennis Hildeby for the time being until Joseph Woll comes back? So that to me is a big question mark right now in terms of if he's going to stay in the NHL. But I thought all in all, he did make a good impression to get more looks and warrant more ice time until Woll comes back. And if he's going to be the guy, because let's face it, if he gets sent down and he clears waivers, then the Marlies still have a good option in tandem or trio in Hildeby, Artur Akhtiamov, and Primeau. So a lot of what if factors for Cayden Primeau, but I still thought he had a good debut for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he anticipated playing for the Maple Leafs this season, especially where he was kind of going. He went to the Carolina. They put him on waivers. And then, of course, the Maple Leafs picked him up, and he gets to play for a team that probably cheered for growing up, right? So, so it's pretty cool for him to get the start. And we'll see how many more he gets before Joseph Woll does come back. And, we're not sure when that'll happen. So we'll see how many more he gets. All right. another one, a big thing happened. We're mentioning the top line and all that. Matthew Knies hitting his 100th point in these recently. I mean, that's pretty good for a guy that is really very early in his career still, only his third full season. Has got a goal and 6 points so far this season, 45 goals, 55 assists, being the 100 points there. What do you think about his performance and the big thing, getting that 100th point in his 165th game?
Yeah, and it's rare because he usually tends to score a little bit more goals and set up the plays, but he's been primarily a playmaker this year. So for him to get those points or to get it off an assist is a really great factor that he's rounding out his game. He's not just going to be a net front presence guy, but he's a guy that can draw on players and set other guys up. And that's going to be important for him going forward. But I kind of feel like in his draft year, there was a lot of talk about when the Maple Leafs drafted him in the second round that he possibly could have been a first rounder had it not been for getting COVID himself. Because he did have impressive numbers in the USHL, and now he's basically in the top 10 scorers from his draft class right now, where Wyatt Johnston is leading the pack. So obviously there's still a lot of, not necessarily question marks, but a lot of players still trying to find their role from that draft class, but it's clear to see what Matthew Knies is to this team. He's a top line, left wing, power forward, who's a guy that leads by example with his play on the ice, and even with his comments off the ice too. You could tell when a game doesn't go well, he's very candid about his comments and open about it, where he's not going to hold back. And if he needs to drop a couple of swears every now and then, he definitely will to get his team into gear. You see it with his play, the physicality, the play down low in front of the net. He's a guy that can be relied on heavily in a lot of offensive situations, and even defensively too. His game's starting to round out a little bit better. I honestly love the fact that, it was with Matthews or even with that line where he's generating a lot of plays, especially on that goal. I thought that was a really great heads up feed to play that give and go tic-tac-toe kind of style. For a second, I thought maybe he just held on to it a bit too long and then Matthews had to reach back, but assist is assist. He got it. Matthews buried it. And you know what? This is the kind of player that the Maple Leafs had envisioned when they not necessarily when they drafted him, but when they signed him, when his tenure in college was over and they immediately brought him up, where even in the first few games, you already started to feel his impact. You saw it as a rookie, and you even saw it last season in his sophomore year where he almost hit 60 points and 30 goals. I mean, that alone itself is impressive, and he already has 6 points in 4 games right now. So you can see that he's elevating his play, that production is taking a new level right now. Obviously, the goals are going to come too because he is going to be a nightmare for defenders and goaltenders in front of the net. But for him to already reach this mark in just his, third season, 165 games in, that's a really impressive number and feed. And the way that the point per game average is looking right now, pretty decent for his career right now. So really happy for him that he was able to get this mark as quick as he did.
Yeah, it's looking like a big steal in that second round. A guy that's already well on his way in this NHL career. So yeah, a great achievement for him getting his 100th so soon in his career too. All right. Well, speaking of guys that, first round picks, Nicholas Robertson. I don't know how many times we've talked about this guy on this show. Well, not on this show. This is a new show, but Maple Leafs Lounge. I know news and rumors, all this stuff with written content, but he's been in the trade rumors again. Is this the time he actually does get moved after a couple seasons where he just seems seemingly in the rumors all the time?
Yeah, it kind of feels like even in the preseason, there was a lot of talk that if this camp doesn't go well for Nick Robertson, he could be on the move. And he did have a good camp. It's just, it was very much like what you expect for Nick Robertson, having good moments, having bad moments. And right now, with the way the roster is constructed, with the way that some players are on injured reserve and the way that Easton Cowan is playing, moving up the depth chart, it kind of feels like Nick Robertson's spot still is in jeopardy, even though he hasn't played terribly so far to start the season. And I kind of thought that heading into the season or like in preseason, I thought that they would trade him before the season started. Didn't quite happen. But right now, it kind of feels like it's at a tipping point where all he is going to be on this Maple Leafs team is just going to be a third line player and nothing more. Because he has had looks, he's had opportunities to move further up, and he just hasn't quite found that consistency. And that's the big factor for him to try and elevate his game. And he just hasn't quite done that yet. And yeah, on Insider Trading during that intermission with the Leaf game, Darren Dreger did say that, Brad Treliving is talking with teams to try and move him because he could be a valuable piece elsewhere. He could get a decent return in terms of a couple picks, maybe a better roster player that could fill that third line middle six hole that the Maple Leafs are also trying to fill if and when he does leave. Because at the moment right now, you already have two regulars on injury or that are out because of injury with Scott Laughton and Steven Lorentz. Those 2/3 are your third line right there. I don't think you're replacing Nick Robertson with any of those. Calle Jarnkrok has 3 goals in 3 games. Don't think you're going to be replacing him or 3 goals, I believe, in 4 games right now. I don't think he scored in the last one, but he has 3 goals already this season. Don't see how Nick Robertson can overvault him as a veteran. And Easton Cowan, as we mentioned, is already on the top line. Yeah. It kind of feels like this is the end of the road for Nick Robertson, and it's just basically time to put this whole entire narrative to rest and just move on. It'll be good for him. It'll be good for the team. It gives him an opportunity to play elsewhere, and it would give the Maple Leafs an asset. And if there's a team willing to either pay what the Maple Leafs are asking or even a little bit more, because a potential 20 or a guy that can easily put up 20, 25 goals is really valuable. That's a decent depth scoring right there. So I hope that it does come to an end, but I do feel like that I don't know if a trade is going to happen soon, but I think Treliving would like it to happen sooner rather than later, than maybe in the next month or two, rather than at the trade deadline.
I see that too, especially with so much, different forwards. Now that Cowan's in the mix now for sure, and looks good. You'd want him in the lineup over Robertson at this point. Has an assist in 4 games. That's very underwhelming stats. So, it's something that probably should happen. I misspoke. He was a 2nd-round pick. So it was in the same vein as Matthew Knies. So I was in the right track, but he was a 2nd-round pick too. But yeah, fact check myself there. All right. To finish our show here, any other takeaways you have from the season so far? There's so much to talk about the Maple Leafs and replacing Mitch Marner. We had talked about that at the beginning with the season preview. Matias Maccelli's gotten his chance there. You got Easton Cowan now kind of in the mix. Lots of stuff to really go over, but any other general things that kind of caught your eye over the last 4 games?
Yeah, it kind of feels like Matias Maccelli is sort of starting to form some chemistry with John Tavares and William Nylander right now. I think that's the big thing. Obviously, you wondered where Maccelli did look good or looked decent at times with Matthews on that top line. It just maybe he's had his moments in the regular season, hasn't quite formed that chemistry, kind of like the way Cowan has. But the way that he's finding a home on that second line is very important because you still need to have a really strong playmaker alongside guys that can finish in John Tavares and William Nylander. And I feel like Maccelli may have found his home, just like kind of Joshua and Waugh found their spot in the lineup, Cowan his, and I think Maccelli is going to be a decent second-line player. The other thing is the whole William Nylander, boost that he got from Craig Berube, and Craig Berube saying that they needed a little bit more from him, especially after the Detroit games. It kind of feels like a little bit, what's the word I'm kind of looking for, unusual that an NHL player should get this much of a boost a lot of the time from NHL coaches, because Nylander's done that with, or he's gotten that boost from Sheldon Keefe. He's getting that from Craig Berube, but he appears that both coach and player seem to be on the same page, and they have little chats every now and then. So they have that rapport that's really great. For Berube to come out, say Nylander needs to be better, needs to get to the middle a little bit more. What does he do? He comes out with a 3-point effort. Obviously he did score a, empty net goal, but I thought he was really better with his playmaking, spotting players, either trailing or just, working, giving goals and plays in the offensive zone. Thought he was really great attacking the middle of the ice, which was what he needed to do. Had a few more shots on net. Obviously those are going to come eventually because we know how good of a shooter that he is when he picks a spot and picks the corners. It kind of feels like when the coaches have to go and boost Nylander a little bit. Kind of seems like everyone is going to be like, oh, here's William Nylander, kind of being William Nylander-esque, lazy and everything like that, kind of what he was early on in his career. I don't see that. I think it's just the way that Willie is at this point. I think that, yeah, you don't want to have the coach to tell him every single time that we need a little bit more from you. But whenever he gets called out, there's one thing that William Nylander does, and that's put his money where his mouth is and answers the call. And if they say we need him to be better, he comes out and he is definitely better overall. So I think that we're going to start to see Nylander go on a little bit more of a stretch. And even so, I know his play wasn't as great, but he did have a couple of assists and he was very productive point-wise. You just didn't see that dominant aspect to his game like he had in the postseason or last season as well. Again, we're only 3-4 games in. Everyone's still getting adjusted to basically a new system, and even on the power play too. It's new for everyone there. He has a new line mate in Michelli, but I think that game against Nashville could be a precursor to something even more where both Tavares and Nylander get going.
Yeah, I was going to talk about his slow start. Yet 7 points in 4 games is not really a slow start. So that game against the Predators kind of boosted that and made him look a bit better. But yeah, it is something that's kind of plagued him throughout his career. I mean,
does get off the slower starts than usual. So
yeah, but it ends up really good seasons after. So you can't really debate it, or 80-point plus in the last 4 seasons. So you just go take the good with the bad, I guess, and he'll eventually get going, and we'll see the 80-point Nylander eventually here. So we'll see how that goes for the rest of the season, and as we keep going here. Thanks, Peter, for coming on, talking Maple Leafs. Probably could go an hour talking about them, but for purpose of this video, we've covered quite a bit over the last bunch, and we'll talk next week again, talking what has happened with them. Hopefully they're well above 500 because they've hit that mark, but you'd hope that they're a lot better than that, especially everyone's kind of thinking they're going to be fighting for the division. So very early, lots of hockey to be played, but we'll see what we're talking about next week. But make sure to check out everything at thehockeywriters.com. We've got articles, the Maple Leafs. There's tons of stuff to go on. One of the more active teams on the site, so lots of stuff to read. And lots of things to look at on the YouTube channel as well as we keep doing these videos. But until our next one, we will see you next time.